Yeah. So today we're starting on page 144 where we left off of God Speaks. In the illusory states of God, the eternal, formless, infinite God, while being impressed by his own cosmic creations, gains consciousness first of the gross forms and experiences the gross worlds, then of the subtle forms and experiences the subtle worlds, then of the mental forms and experiences the mental worlds, and eventually attaining consciousness of his unlimited self, experiences his eternal state. Consequently, when God is conscious of his gross forms, he identifies himself with the gross bodies and finds himself as a particular gross body according to the special impressions of that gross body. This means that the infinite, eternal, formless God finds himself as finite, mortal, and having gross form. The cause of this ignorance is but the impressions, sanskaras. So God, who is eternally in the beyond state of Paratpar, Parabrahma, or in the infinitude state of God is, in the beginning, acquires ignorance through being impressed by the impressions rather than by acquiring knowledge of his reality. Hence, when God acquires a particular form, body, or sharir, according to particular impressions, he feels and experiences himself as that particular form, body, or sharir. God, in his stone form, experiences himself as stone. Accordingly, in consonance with impressions and their consciousness, God feels and experiences that he is metal, vegetation, worm, fish, bird, animal, or human being. Whatever be the type of the gross form, and whatever be the shape of the form, the evolving consciousness of God tends God spontaneously to associate himself with that form, figure, and shape, which tends him to experience himself through impressions that he is that form, figure, and shape. Similarly, when God is conscious of the subtle body, that is, the prawn, then God experiences the subtle world and regards himself as the subtle body or prawn. Likewise, God becomes conscious of the mental body, that is, the mana or the mind, experiences the mental world, and regards himself as the mental body or the mana, that is, the mind. It is only because of impressions that the infinite God, the Oversoul, without form and infinite, experiences that he is veritably but a finite gross body in the gross sphere. That is, the Jivatma in Anabhuvan, or a subtle body in the subtle sphere. That is, the Jivatma in Pranbhuvan, or a mental body in the mental sphere. That is, the Jivatma in the Mano Bhuvan. God, while experiencing the gross world through gross forms, associates with and dissociates from innumerable gross forms. The association with and dissociation from gross forms are called birth and death, respectively. Marian, could you continue reading for us?
It is because of impressions that the eternal, immortal, formless God, or the Oversoul, without births and deaths, has to experience births and deaths a number of times. While God has to experience these innumerable births and deaths because of impressions, he has not only to experience the gross world, which is finite and therefore false, but together with it, he has also to experience its happiness and misery, its virtue and vice. All forms, figures, and shapes, all worlds and planes, all births and deaths, all virtue and vice, all happiness and misery experienced by God, who is eternal, formless, and infinite, are the outcome of impressioned consciousness. Since all impressions are but the outcome of the nothing, that manifested as the nothingness, it means that whatever God experiences through his evolved consciousness in the gross, subtle, and mental worlds is the experience of the nothing. And as this nothing by nature is nothing, therefore all the experiences in the intermediary illusory states of God are nothing but literally illusion, and as such, false and finite. Only when the impressioned consciousness is freed from all impressions is liberation or mukti in human form attained as nirvana or fana, where only consciousness is, and where all else of the nothing, which was as nothingness, vanishes forever. Only in the case of the one who retains the body for 3 to 4 days after nirvana does the liberated or the unimpressioned or impressionless consciousness invariably realize eternal godhood in the second stage of Fana, that is, in Fanafila, and assert itself as, I am God, without doubt. Shall I read the asterisk? Mayor Baba explained, those who do not retain their bodies for 3 to 4 days, but drop their bodies immediately after nirvana, attain liberation, mukti. Shall I read
the dagger too, please?
The dagger
Yes,
is,
thanks.
time does not exist for anyone who is in nirvana, or for the one who has attained liberation. The period mentioned, 3 to 4 days, holds meaning only for the understanding of those who are gross conscious and are bound by time. This is the nirvikalpa state of undoubtedly, I am God, when literally the impressionless or unimpressioned consciousness linked with human form realizes, I am God, I was God, and forevermore will remain God, as existence, eternal and conscious. In this way, man becomes God. And it is said that man is God realized, or that the Jivatma in Paramatma has become the Shivatma in Paramatma, or the Oversoul. The eternal reality is that Paramatma, or the Oversoul, is Atma, or the soul, and this reality is realized only when the impressioned consciousness as Jivatma becomes the impressionless or unimpressioned consciousness as Shivatma, merging in Paramatma to assert and realize the identity of Paramatma. If in reality Atma is Paramatma, how then could any situation arise for Atma to merge in Paramatma? In order to clarify this situation and understand that Paramatma is Atma in reality, we compare Paramatma with an infinite, limitless, and shoreless ocean. Therefore, Atma, which is Paramatma, can never be out of bounds of the limitless and shoreless ocean, that is Paramatma. Atma can never be out of Paramatma because Paramatma, which we have compared to the limitless and shoreless ocean, is infinite and unlimited. How could Atma come out of or have a place beyond the expanse of the limitless when Atma is Paramatma? Hence, Atma is in Paramatma too. Now, in order to understand that the Atma which is in Paramatma is in reality Paramatma itself, let us imagine that it is possible to separate or take one iota of the ocean out of the limitless expanse of the unlimited and shoreless ocean. It follows then that this iota of ocean, when in the limitless ocean, is ocean itself before separation, and was in the unlimited ocean, not as an iota of the ocean, but as the ocean itself. Because every iota of ocean, when not limited by the limitations of being an iota, is unlimited ocean itself. It is only when the iota of the ocean is separated from the unlimited ocean, or is taken out of the unlimited ocean as a drop, that this separated iota of the ocean is looked upon as the limited drop of the unlimited ocean. In other words, the infinite, unlimited, and shoreless ocean now is made to look upon itself through the drop as merely the limited drop of that infinite, unlimited, and shoreless ocean. And in comparison to the infinite, unlimited, and shoreless ocean, this drop of ocean is most finite, most limited, and has now infinite limitations. Can I pass?
Yes, thank you, Marion.
I'm going to pass because
And
I have some noise here.
okie dokie. Ernie, can you read for us, please?
Similarly, Atma, as compared to the drop of the infinite ocean, can never be out of any limitations of the limitless and infinite Paramatma, as compared to the infinite, unlimited, and shoreless ocean. But just as the iota of ocean acquires its limitations as a drop through a bubble on the surface of the ocean, and just as this bubble bestows upon the iota of the ocean an apparent separative and limited existence apart from the infinite ocean, likewise, Atma, which is not only in Paramatma, but which is Paramatma itself, apparently experiences and asserts separative existence from the infinite, unlimited Paramatma through the limitations of the bubble of impressions, which bestow conscious ignorance and with which Atma shrouds itself and experiences itself as limited and separate from Paramatma. Through these limitations, formed by the bubble of impressions, self-created by Atma, Atma apparently inherits a separative and limited existence from Paramatma. And because of this self-created separativeness from infinite Paramatma, Atma, which is itself infinite, unlimited, and unbounded, bestows upon itself the aspects of being most finite and most limited, with infinite limitations acquired through impressions. As soon as the bubble of impressions burst on completion of total involution of consciousness and conscious ignorance, as impression consciousness is transformed into conscious knowledge, as unimpression consciousness, the limited and the most finite experiences of the Atma vanish. Atma liberated from apparent separative finite existence automatically merges in or finds itself as one with and in Paramatma, eternally infinite, unlimited, and unbounded in the beyond state of God. And this is called Atma's union with Paramatma, or Allah. In this state of consciousness, Atma is now completely conscious of the beyond unconscious, Parabrahma state of God, which is the original state of God when it is said, God is. In Sufi terms, God in the beyond state is termed Allah, and God in the beyond state is termed Wara ul Wara, or Gahib ul Gahib. In human form, the highest and most exalted divine status of God is that of Qutubiyat, where the Qutub, or the Sadguru, or perfect master, not only consciously experiences infinite knowledge, infinite power, and infinite bliss, and all goodness and all that is infinite beauty, meaning glory, but he consciously uses these infinite aspects of those jivatmas still undergoing the illusory states of God in illusion. In this exalted divine status of Qutubiyat, not only man becomes God, but man lives the life of God too. To worship this man God is to worship God with infinite attributes. This highest divine status of living the life of God consciously in human form is attained very, very rarely by very, very few Shivatmas. After the unconscious Atmas pass through the process of evolution, reincarnation, and involution of consciousness as Jivatmas and attain nirvana, which in some cases is immediately followed by nirvikalpa samadhi, or superconsciousness, asserting as Shivatmas. At all times and in all ages, and at one and the same time, there are always on this earth 56 Shivatmas, or God realized Atmas. Of these 56 Shivatmas, some remain in the state of Mazubiyat, some remain in the state of the divine junction and Turiya Avastha, known in Sufi terms as Fana Mal Baka. A very few of them crossing the divine junction remain in the state of Salukiyat, and only 5 of them are always there in the state of Qutubiyat, as long as all these retain human forms.
Thanks, Ernie. Mahu, could you continue, please?
I'm sorry, I unmuted. Thus, at all times and in all ages, there are always 5 Qutubs, Sadgurus or perfect masters, living on the earth amongst humanity, wielding infinite aspects of Ahadiyat, of the Arsh Ala or the Vidnyan of the Vidnyan Bahumika, of the beyond state of God in the form of infinite knowledge, power, and bliss for the progressive emancipation of all in the field of illusion. According to the divine law, these five Qutubs or Sadgurus or perfect masters at the end of every cycle participate the advent of the direct descent of God on earth in human male form. Hence, at the end of every cycle, when God manifests on earth in the form of man and reveals his divinity to mankind, he is recognized as the avatar, the Messiah, the prophet. The direct descent of God on earth as avatar is that independent status of God when God directly becomes man, without undergoing or passing through the processes of evolution, reincarnation, and involution of consciousness. There's an asterisk after becomes man. So we read that. Okay. So it explains, the asterisk explains Fana'ul Fana. Fana'ul Fana means the state of God becoming man, or the direct descent of God on earth as avatar. Baga'ul Baga means the state of God becoming God-man, or God's knowing himself as avatar. State of ordinary man is the state of God as man. Okay. Consequently, God directly becomes God-man and lives the life of man amongst mankind, realizing his divine status of the highest of the high, or the ancient one, through these Qutubs or Sadgurus or perfect masters of the time. Fundamentally, there is absolutely no difference in the experience of reality, whether the Shivatmas are in the divine status of Majzubiyat, Turiya Avesta, Sulukiyat, or Gotubiyat. Once the goal is attained, all Shivatmas in all divine statuses undoubtedly and consciously begin to enjoy forever and ever that divine heritage of infinite bliss, while spontaneously and continuously experiencing their own triune nature of infinite knowledge, infinite power, and infinite bliss. However, the difference in their divine status is due not to their experience of their infinite triune nature, but to a difference in the scope of wielding infinite power after establishing themselves in the Vijnana Bahumika of infinite knowledge or Sulukiyat, and then living the life of man-God or Qutub, exercising their infinite knowledge, wield infinite power while enjoying infinite bliss. The difference between the divine status of Gotop or Sadguru and the avatar of the age is that a Gotop, after having gone through the whole process of cosmic evolution, enters and lives the life of God as man God, while the avatar does not have to go through the process of evolution at all, because the avatar is that highest status of God, where God directly becomes man and lives on earth as God-man. In living the life of God, both the Sadguru or Gotop and the avatar or the Sahib Zaman are equal in having the same experiences. Both are leading God's life, and also both on every level and plane of life in illusion. Both are simultaneously on the level of the lowest to the highest. In spite of this, the most important and the only difference is that the Gotop acts on that level and the avatar becomes that on that level.
Thank you, Mahu. To make the point of acting and becoming clear, many and innumerable examples can be quoted. But for ordinary human understanding, let illness serve as an example. For instance, a Kutub or Sadguru cannot and will not fall ill. And when he appears to have fallen ill, it is just his acting of illness. When people actually see him ill, they do not see him ill, but in reality, they see his illness perfectly enacted because he is the perfect master and perfection personified. He acts as if he were ill. On the other hand, when people see the avatar ill, he has actually fallen ill and he has literally become ill. But though the avatar has actually become ill, he has at his back simultaneously infinite power, infinite knowledge, and infinite bliss. On every level, in every state, and in all planes simultaneously, a Sadguru behaves as the creature or the thing of that level and state, and as man of that plane. Whereas the avatar becomes as the creature or the thing of that level and state, and as a man of that plane all at once. And at one and the same time, becoming and being one and all on all levels, states, and in all planes, and beyond all levels, states, and all planes. The avatar is the only one infinitely capable of giving a universal push to all things, all creatures, and to all mankind at one and the same time, accelerating the maturity of consciousness. In reality, God is everything and is in everyone. The avatar of God is not only everything and in everyone, but he actually becomes everything and everyone. Hence, the fundamental and only difference between an avatar and a Sadguru is that on every level and on all planes, a Sadguru acts, whereas an avatar does not act, but actually becomes that. In short, there are always, at all times and in all ages, 56 God realized souls, or Shivatmas, in human form on the earth. It must be noted that all of the 56 God realized ones may be called perfect ones, but all of these 56 perfect ones are not all perfect masters, although all 56 experience the same experience of the eternal reality without the least difference of experience whatsoever. And although all the 56 are one in consciousness of the ultimate goal, reality, perfect in all respects, and God realized, yet there is a difference in their function. Therefore, the term for the 56 God realized ones may be perfect ones, but not perfect masters or sadgurus or kutubs. Marian, could you continue, please?
Out of the 56 perfect ones, or Shivatmas, in human form, there are always, at all times, in all ages, 5 perfect masters, or Sadgurus, or Kutubs. And these 5 control the affairs of the whole universe. When the age is not of the avataric period, these 5 perfect masters conjointly look to the affairs of the universe. I'm going to need to pass.
Ernie to the rescue, please.
When the age is not of the avataric period, these 5 perfect masters conjointly look to the affairs of the universe and to the one from amongst the 5 perfect masters who is responsible for the control of all of the affairs of the whole universe is called by the Sufis Qutub-i-Irshad. But when the age is of the avataric period at the end of every cycle. The avatar, ancient one, the highest of the high, the independent reality, infinite consciousness of the beyond state of God, is made to manifest in illusion directly on the earth through a male human being. This manifestation of infinite consciousness of the beyond state of God through a male human form on earth is commonly called the direct descent of God on earth in human form. This descent of God on earth is generally known as the avatar. Hence, it is obvious that when the age of the avataric period and when the avatar, or the reality, or the God consciousness of the beyond state of God is made to manifest into illusion on the earth by giving this reality a human form to be made presentable to the humanity of the world. This avatar, or this God-man, must necessarily be other than the 56 God-realized ones. The then existing and functioning 5 perfect masters at the appropriate time of the avataric period individually and conjointly bring about the advent of the avatar, and exercising their infinite mercy and love for all in ignorance, living the illusory life in creation, use their infinite power and grace to precipitate this advent and make manifest the infinite reality of the eternal infinite God consciousness. I'm sorry. In the beyond state onto this earth into illusion. And they bestow through their infinite power, knowledge and bliss onto the reality a most suitable cloak of illusion in the shape of a human male form, so that the divinity of the reality may be made most presentable in the world of illusion. All cycles of time in illusion end and begin after 700 or 1400 years, and there have been and will be millions and billions of such cycles in a cycle of cycles. Thus, there is no end to illusion, which always remains illusion. Thus, when infinite reality, that is, God, manifests on earth in the form of a man and reveals his divinity to mankind, he is recognized as the Avatar, the Messiah, the prophet. God thus becomes man. In this manner, infinite God, age after age, throughout all cycles, wills through his infinite mercy to effect his presence amidst mankind by stooping down to human levels in human form. But his physical presence amidst mankind not being apprehended, he is looked upon as an ordinary man of the world. When, however, he asserts his divinity on earth by proclaiming himself the Avatar of the age, he is worshipped by some who accept him as God and glorified by a few who know him as God on earth. But it invariably falls to the lot of the rest of humanity to condemn him while he is physically in their midst. Thus it is that God as man proclaiming himself as the Avatar, suffers himself to be persecuted and tortured, to be humiliated and condemned by humanity, for whose sake his infinite love has made him stoop so low, in order that humanity, by the very act of condemning God's manifestation in the form of the Avatar, should, however indirectly, assert the existence of God in his infinite, eternal state of reality. The Avatar is always one and the same because God is always one and the same. The eternal, indivisible, infinite one who manifests himself in the form of man as the Avatar, as the Messiah, as the prophet, as the Buddha, as the Ancient One, the highest of the high. Mayor Baba was asked whether a perfect master, after leaving the body, ever comes back to earth. That is, does he ever take birth again? Baba replied, no, never. Only the Avatar takes birth again and again. This eternally one and the same Avatar is made to repeat his manifestation from time to time in different cycles, adopting different names and different human forms in different places to reveal truth in different garbs and different languages in order to raise humanity from the pit of ignorance and help free it from the bondage of delusions. During the Avataric period, the one from amongst the then living five masters, who used to function as Qutub-i-Irshad, ceases to hold this divine office with the advent of the Avatar and delivers his duty and charge of the sole responsibility for the affairs of the universe into the hands of the God-man as soon as he is able to assume his office as the Christ, the Avatar of the age, and remains himself as long as he is in a gross body, holding the same office of Qutub as the other four hold.
Thanks, Ernie. Mahu.
In spite of the advent of the Avatar, there must be 56 God-realized ones in human body, and from amongst these 56, there must be the 5 perfect masters living on earth. When one from amongst these 5 perfect masters drops his physical body, the office is never left vacant. It is invariably filled by another living God-realized one who has realized the eternal reality at the time. Hence, even when the Avatar is on earth, there are 56 God-realized ones, including the 5 perfect masters in human form, but the Avatar becomes the sole authority. It's almost 8 o'clock your time. 5:19.
I think this is a short chapter, Mahu.
How many
if you
pages?
let's see. Looks like a 1 page.
Oh, okay. All right. I can read it. Mhm. Meher Baba, is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. Meher Baba's explanation of chart 7 facing this page. With the energy from the subtle and the illumination from the mental spheres, for trillions upon trillions of years in the past and in the future, the gross universe has been and will be forming and disintegrating into countless stars, suns, planets, worlds, moons, and meteor, what is it? Meteors. Yet, in fact, there are so much things as time and space. I'm sorry, I read that again. Yet, in fact, there are no such things as time and space. Once the soul is freed of illusion, illusion does not merely cease to exist, but is then found never to have existed at all. After a gradual evolution through the mineral, vegetable, and animal kingdoms of the gross universe for a definite yet immeasurable period of millions, billions, and trillions of years, consciousness reaches perfection in man. Man then rightly ought to be God conscious, but does not become so because of the samskaric bindings born of impressions of the illusory experiences gathered during the evolution of consciousness. Thus, man remains fully conscious only of the gross. Before man's perfect but gross consciousness can evolve into the reality of God consciousness, it has first to evolve into subtle consciousness and form the subtle into full mental consciousness. For that, the gross impressions have to turn into the subtle, and from the subtle into the mental impressions, regaining in degree the faintness and fineness of earlier impressions as gathered in the vegetable and mineral forms, the fundamental difference being in consciousness. Unlike the definite course of followed in the process of evolution, man as man can make use of his consciousness fully and freely. Therefore, the fully grows conscious man, according to the resultant tightening or loosening of his samskaric bindings, can become fully subtle conscious, and thereafter fully mental conscious, sometimes after a few, or sometimes after numerous human reincarnations, after numerous human reincarnations. Between each of the two evolutions of his consciousness, in reincarnation between each of the two involutions of his consciousness. And if one happens to be blessed with divine love from a lover of God, or if one has the guiding hand of a perfect master. The emancipation from all bindings, however great and complicated they may be, is achieved much more easily and quickly. In exceptional cases, an instantaneous emancipation is also possible without involving a single reincarnation. However, in order to loosen the bindings through the opposite experiences of the duality of illusion, like pain and pleasure, good and bad, man and woman, strong and weak, etc., on his own, man has to remain conscious of multifarious experiences for 84 lakhs of times through something like 50 crores of sleeps and death. Yet invariably, on account of the all-pervading grace of God, man becomes subtle and mental conscious and is thus able to cut short more or less the stalemate of recurring physical births and deaths. Finally, by the grace of the God-man or the man-God, in far less than an instant's flash of time, man becomes fully conscious God and finds that time and space are born of his own eternity, an infinitude in which time and space have no existence at all. Asterisk. It explains, as for further clarification, Eric Jesawala wrote in reply, the reference to 50 crores of sleeps of death is approximately what one soul has to undergo during the processes of evolution of consciousness of forms and of reincarnation with the help of changes in the media, like association with and dissociation from different forms of different species. 84 lakhs of shakings or reincarnations are in human form, but 50 crores of sleeps of death include pre-human forms, associations with and dissociations from media and the experience of their impressions. Man need not die more times than he can born. Man is born once with the birth of mind, and man die once with the annihilation of mind. As such, there is indeed no reincarnation. It is just a process of crores of sleeps of death for the mind that is born once and that dies once. Birth of mind involves the processes of evolution, reincarnation, and involution. Death of mind is realization of the self.
Thanks, Mahu. I'll just bring back the that chart, and the listeners can study it or look at it on their.
It's called chart 7.
Yeah. Listeners can put it on pause to take as long as they like to look at the chart.